Welcome to the Natural Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. The Natural Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve success and optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for Friends Sharing Facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Steve Wiltshire, who has made fitness, health, and mindset a priority for the last 3 decades. Shortly after winning Mr. Oregon bodybuilding contest, Steve developed an autoimmune disease that originated from a serious gut complication and almost ruined his health. Most everything Steve learned from experts and harsh chemicals in supplements compromised his gut health. 18 months after being diagnosed, Steve healed himself by following the philosophy and wellness practices taught by Hippocrates Clinic in Southern Florida. Through Steve's journey, he has developed a process that has led him to assisting thousands of people how to reclaim their health and power. Steve is a keynote speaker, author, and mindset coach, and founder of the Body Temple Health and Wellness. Some interesting facts that Steve loves doing. He lives in such a beautiful, beautiful state. He loves to hike. He loves meditation, he loves music, but most of all, he loves connecting to people and sharing his story. Welcome to the Natural Podcast, Steve.
Mihaela, pleasure to be here.
It's lovely, lovely to have you on here. So music, what type of music? What's your favorite type of music?
Oh gosh, what a question. I first of all want to say I loved the episode that I listened to. The description of your podcast, I have got 7 episodes I'm excited to listen to over the weekend. And most importantly, the impact that you are making, and everyone that is listening, you are in the right place. I am so stoked about sharing this with many of our 70,000 of our followers, and anybody that so has the drive to help people take charge of their health and their body and their mindset. Like, girl, you're just rocking it. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Steve.
So, I'm getting such a strange download. I can't believe I'm going to tell everybody this. I like to be in this state of mind where I am in this alkaline, happy, joyful state. And probably my favorite music that I listen to is Christmas music. When I am overwhelmed or I want to get into a state of joy, maybe am fatigued, I'll listen to Christmas music, but I listen to so many different kinds of music. And when I go to the gym or I'm going for a run, I'm going to YouTube, and I love to listen to my favorite musicians' live music when they're in the zone. And when they're in the zone, it's a good example, symbolic to our lives, when we know, whether you want to call it your soul, your creator, your inner being, your higher self, Jesus, Buddha, whatever, the universe, when we are in the state of elevated energy where we are unstoppable, all the words come out, the thoughts come out. And so I love to watch a performer just be in their zone. And to me, what they model is to be so present in the moment, always.
Something special about that. I love it. So I love that. So as I introduced you, I mentioned, you're a bodybuilder, got an autoimmune disease and gut health. So before we get into any of that, I wanted to know Steve's key turning point in his journey to bring you exactly where you are today, here in front of us, here on this podcast. What has led you here?
When I just jumped on to a Zoom with a podcaster by the name of Kathleen. And I told her right when I met her that every time I meet somebody by the name of Kathleen, it leads me back to my very first coach. And so here, what a great question. You're a great coach. Great question. My turning point in my life was when I hired my first coach. My life looked so good externally. I had a great marriage. We were expecting a child. I had this beautiful home. I was actually a leader of an organization, and they were rocking it, many awards, all sorts of stuff, but I was unhappy. I didn't know why I was feeling that way. I felt guilty for being unhappy. I didn't know what that meant. I was always going, doing. I was a doer, didn't take a lot of time for myself. And so I ended up waking up constantly every like morning about 4 o'clock with all this anxiety. And I remember just praying for serenity. And I was introduced through a mutual friend to a coach, and I just did a few sessions with her. And then I hired her, and I realized in a short amount of time that I had created this life based on my perception and illusion of what I thought other people thought of my success. And at 33 years old, I realized I don't know who I am. And I was raised to take these journeys that were decided for me. And so it was the turning point of me starting to get to know who I am. And what I want all of you to hear is that, you've got a soul, or like I said, inner being, that is one step ahead of you. And we were having this awesome conversation right prior to this about meditation. And when we slow down, that still small voice guides us. It's being in the state of least resistance. When we're receptive to this understanding that we're on this journey to find ourselves and to pay it forward. And when we do, and we know ourselves, all things are possible. It was the turning point of my life when I hired this coach. And then I wanted her skills. And then that turned into, I remember when she asked me, what is the vision you have for your life? And I was almost embarrassed to tell her, I'd love to write a book. Did I ever think that I would write a book? And then 2.5 years later, I wrote 2 books and an audio program, and I started this journey. And so what I've realized since that time in my life is that the greatest gift we give ourselves is to slow down and listen to that still small voice. I mean, what is meditation at its best? Meditation is doing the things that you love to do that you lose track of time. You're the only podcaster that's ever asked me, what do you do for fun? What's your joy? What's your passion? And yeah, that was the start of my journey that changed my life completely.
Wow. So hiring a coach at the age of 33 changed your life and just made things a little bit more, it kind of like fast tracked it, but it also slowed it down with the meditation, like you said. So sometimes from what I'm hearing is sometimes slowing down actually gets you to the right direction of life. And that's what happened to you.
We slow down to build momentum, right? Get to know ourselves, what our passion is, what we love to do. I think it's so easy to look at other people. I mean, we often look at other people and what they have or who they are, and we want it. And sometimes it comes from a place of aspiration, which is healthy, and sometimes a place of jealousy, which isn't healthy. They're both the same thing. One's healthy and one's not. But what we're really looking at is the thing that they have or who they are, the attributes that they have. We wouldn't be attracted to it if we didn't desire it. And so vision's born from desire. Desire is like the seed that plants all sorts of possibility. And then vision is born from desire. And then intention is born from vision. And intention is ours to own. It's almost like vision and desire is so esoteric, like the universe or heaven symbolically. And then intention is stepping forward, taking action, trusting your pathway. And it's the blueprint, it's the details. And when I look back, I think often, how did I manifest all this stuff? And it was just noticing what I wanted. And so this thing called contrast that we all deal with, in this place of polarity, in this lifetime of polarity, there's this contrast of wanted and unwanted conditions. And it's almost like we judge circumstances, or we feel a victim. We feel like we're a victim from circumstances, but circumstances are our friends, because when we notice we're going through a circumstance, it's the opportunity to turn the coin over and say, oh, I don't want this anymore. We're going to talk about health today. And often when people are going through either a challenge or a condition or a disease, or they just want to transform their mind or their physicality, and they spend the time focusing on what they want. Well, law of attraction is a thing. So when you just start to notice what you don't want and focus on what you do want, it's like all the hosts of heaven show up. The ideal people show up. The ideal situations show up. I found it interesting and just that I had an opportunity to meet you. And then when I read your description, I'm like, oh, wow. Michaela is like my tribe. Like, I can't wait to share these episodes with my following. You just start to track things without having to even put any effort into it.
Yeah, I absolutely love how that happens. And it's so interesting because when you've got your tribe, like you said, and you yourself love your tribe and people around you, things just flow. And if you put things into place like routines, meditations, and just be, things happen. I love that. And I'm pretty sure the
Did you
audience that's
hear that,
listening,
everybody? What she just said, worth rewinding. Will you say it again? Flow.
Flow. Yes, that's it. Yes, that's it.
You're so in the state, right? And notice she said, I forgot, because she was so just in the moment.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And that happens. And I was saying that the audience would love hearing that. And whatever they might be going through the day today, hearing you say all those things makes them just feel like, wow, I have control. And like you said, we're going to go through and talk about health and having control of health and so forth. Before we get there, I wanted to talk about success and optimal health. You did say success at the age of 33 was what everyone thought of you, of what everyone else thought you should be successful like. So what does success look like for you right now? And what does optimal health look like for Steve now?
Oh, wow. You're pulling up a lot of emotion. A lot of emotion. You're so good at what you do. I was raised completely different than how Lynn and I raised our son. So Lynn's my ex-wife, my best friend. We were married for 15 years, really. Separated for a few years. We were both coaches, so we worked it out. And, we raised our son to be happy and to see him at 24, so highly conscious, present, beautiful. And I wasn't raised that way. And so I remember I didn't want to have children. I was adamant about it. And I said, if that's what you want, I'm probably not the right guy. And then later on, it just happened and we moved forward with it. And I think that was actually part of my anxiety. I didn't know it was that, but I didn't want to screw up what I rehealed myself or undid in my relationship with my dad. And so at 33, I'm trying to find what happiness is. And I'm like, I don't know myself. Now, was it the coach? Coach was incredible, but it was the process. It was the tools. Some of the simplest questions that she would ask me about that would, like, scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about your relationship? Scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about your health? Scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about fun and recreation? These tools, these core values, these personality ratings. I remember her leading me to, I was stuck at not writing. I just couldn't get this vibe. And she said, I want you to get a numerology reading in heaven. I didn't even know what that even meant. And she led me to this numerologist that I kind of had a judgment around. I was kind of a fundamentalist, and at that point, and felt like, gosh, this seems kind of like witchcraft. I'm in my mind, like I didn't get it. And here I work with Georgette for 25 years, the most spiritual person I've ever met. But when she said, your gift is bringing abstract knowledge into pragmatic methodology, like you understand that. And I could see that I was doing that, but not to the degree that I could. And so these personality ratings, and it's called the Enneagram, if you want to check it out, ENNEAGRAM. Wow, it wakes people up, and it's not questions that you answer. But then there are esoteric readings like, some of you just got to trust yourself. Even when you're hearing this, for example, if you're feeling discord, it's not for you. Know yourself. Yeah, take advice from anybody. America is like the country that's all we've been taught to give people advice instead of listening. For God's sake, listening is so close to being loved. Most people can't tell the difference. And so, but in all of that, getting to know myself is what changed everything. And who says happiness isn't a goal, right? When somebody says, what's your goal? To be happy. Attributes are and characteristics are great goals, because what are goals? What we want to experience, what we want to achieve, and who we want to become. And I have found the people that set, I don't like the word goals because it's misunderstood. I love the word intentions. When you set intentions for who you want to be, it's like the achievements just happen. The experiences just happen. Like, who do you want to become?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that. And from my understanding, what I'm hearing is you understanding yourself on a deeper level has allowed you to understand what success is and understand what health is.
Well said. That was poetic.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love that. Thank you for allowing us to get a little bit of an insight of who Steve is, his background, and being so raw and open. The audience really appreciates that. Everyone listening loves hearing raw stories and people being open. And it's hard. It's hard to a stranger, and you're just opening yourself up. So really do appreciate it. So yeah, let's get into today's topic. I'm so excited because I haven't had a bodybuilder with an past autoimmune disease on the podcast before. So we're going to be talking about from bodybuilding to autoimmune disease to health. So you did a whole circle. You went from, being the bodybuilding, winning Mr. Oregon, to autoimmune disease, and now to health. Like, that is absolutely amazing. So what have you, tell us a little bit about your story about that. And then if we can at the end also talk about what have been told, do you believe was the root cause of your autoimmune disease? But give us a little bit of an insight, Steve. What actually happened there?
I gotta say, first of all, what's going through my mind, I've been interviewed so many times. You truly are one of the best interviewers. And this short amount of time, you are so incredible, tapped in. I want to just say, when we're tapped in and tuned in, it's intuition and it's logic. And you've got that gift. Incredible. Well, my story is, everybody that had known me for years. Well, I usually don't tell this story, and I'm going to tell this story. I feel like you're just deepening some understanding. Here, I'm like this odd kid growing up. I even had the speech impediment because my family all moved so quick. My brothers, my mom and dad, I had two brothers, and I was always nervous. I never talked about it. Didn't think, it was me. I was always nervous. And my parents were just constantly on the go. And so I kind of grew up just feeling like I wasn't really good at anything. And then all of a sudden I became this entrepreneur at 17 years old, became very successful. And here I'm 27 years old, 6 months before my 10-year reunion. And I'm at this convention, 4,000 people. Patricia Fripp, I think she's from England. I thought maybe Australia. And she's doing this keynote message, and she gets to the very end and she just stops talking. 2 minutes. Everybody's completely quiet. And then she looks at the room, audience, and she says, I have one question before you leave. And I want you to write about it for 3 minutes. What are you sick and tired of being sick and tired of? And I wrote, I hate my body. So my brothers were athletes. My dad was an athlete. I probably could have been, but I was so browbeat of not measuring up that I just never took action. So I decided to come home. I hired a trainer, got in shape, thought everything that I was learning about food was ideal, right? And 6 months later, I'm transforming my body, and I'm liking how I'm getting really confident, but it was external to internal. It was the wrong way to do it, right? Esteem really is loving yourself, loving your thoughts, loving your progress, loving even how you are in conflict. And so I just stayed on that journey. And about 44 years old, I decided to do this fitness show. My friends are saying, why don't you do a fitness show? Why don't you do a bodybuilding show? Man, you look great. You're getting too old. And before I got autoimmune, I thought everything that I was doing was ideal. Most everything that I learned from even a naturopath and my trainer was wrong. It couldn't sustain me while I got older. And so youth, we have the gift of grace. And that means, we're driving a brand new car. There's not a lot of miles. We can run the shit out of it. But at the end of the day, it's not going to sustain itself without maintenance. And so I had no signs really leading into up to my illness, which I call a condition. That's my word for autoimmune. Is a condition, and you can completely restore your health, and it's all in your control. And I remember being with my son at a vegan restaurant and eating a really great meal, and all of a sudden my stomach just exploded. I was like thinking, I decided, gosh, Quinn, I think I need to go into ER. Well, the next day I contacted my doctor, got some lab tests back, and my lab test looked great. And I remember thinking, you got to be kidding me. Like, there's something wrong. Every time I ate, every time I drank, I was bloated. I was miserable. My mind, I started noticing that I had this inability to have clarity. I was constantly fatigued. But the good news is his mother, Lynn, had been on this 2-year journey of healing herself from 3rd stage cancer. No chemo, no radiation, no surgery. And I was so stuck on whether she would live. I never told her this, but I would look at my son and think, why don't you just get a mastectomy? And it wasn't my decision, but I was wondering, is she really going to live through this? Well, after I got sick, I went to her, and she had been through the Hippocrates Institute, Southern Florida, which I believe is one of the top, if not the top, healing institute in the US. And she had set this pace for me to start this journey of healing myself. It took 18 months. I had the serious case of candida, and they called it celiacs. Not a doctor, a naturopath. And I had these parasites that I couldn't get rid of. And the one thing, for those of you that might have something similar, the only thing that set me free temporarily was colonics. It's like a spa experience and can be uncomfortable for people at first mentally. But what happened is it would continually restore my gut and get rid of all that bad bacteria. So for 4 days, I'd feel fine. And then by the 5th day, 6th day, 7th day, I wasn't feeling too good. And I was just kind of thinking, why doesn't anybody talking about parasites? 14% of the population's walking around with these parasites. And some of these parasites actually can ignite cancer cells, and they can destroy your body. Big conversation.
Wow, that is definitely a story. And it's so interesting that your partner at the time was going through similar things like that. So everything that occurs around us occurs for a reason. And we have people surrounded with people who help us go through that, which is absolutely amazing. And you're so right. Parasites, candida cause havoc on our body. We just might go, oh, well, it's just one little parasite, but it does havoc on our body, especially on your gut in what's occurred in your case.
Can we stay there a minute? I love what you just said. There's a reason. When we are in the receptive mode to every circumstance that's coming our way, it's hard sometimes at the beginning, but you train your brain how to think. You realize, I'm only here for a certain amount of time. Why am I here? What am I here to experience? What am I here to give back? Rewinding time to see what Lynn and I have done. And she really has the science down. In fact, all of you are going to have access to our Kickstart Detox plan. It took us 18 months to create this whole program. And this process that we take everybody through is just magic around restoring your health. And you're going to see Lynn in that video. It's a 43-minute video. It's all about how to restore your health. But looking back, I would have never thought I would end up here. And all part of that was simply about being receptive to what we were going through.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Don't worry about my video. It just stopped, but we'll keep going. You're so right. Being receptive and having, it goes all back to what we spoke about before, being in the flow and being receptive. And what you were going through that. You were receptive and you were going through the flow, even though there was some resistance there, from my understanding.
Yeah, it wasn't easy at first. Yeah, the two greatest questions I ask people that I'm helping. We've worked with thousands of people. My second favorite question, Hala, is where do you see your ideal health? If your health was ideal in a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even 6 months, like what would you feel like? What would you be experiencing? And then they'll share that. And my favorite question is, what don't you want to deal with? If you could fast forward in 2, 4, 5 years, what would be the worst scenario that you could contract in health? What's your fear? We don't talk about that. We just kind of think this body, this gift we've been given in this lifetime is just kind of like, oh gosh, I'm thinking of intelligence, these machines that just operate with everything that's changing in our universe. And our bodies need to be treated like a baby. And when you do, you're going to have an experience like the late Betty White, one of my very favorite elderly people that exuded and radiated joy through her whole life. If you knew her story, like I know her story, because I didn't like aging. A coach recognized this about 48. And he said, you got an issue, like a belief around aging. And I said, yeah, I don't like it. And he said, well, do you have role models? Who are your role models? And I only had a few. And he said, I want you to go search for them, even if you don't know them. And I did. And Betty White was one of those role models because she's just this joyful human being. And here she lived to be 99 years old. Everybody told me I'd post things about her all the time. And I didn't notice how much I did it. And people knew that. And when they were reaching out to me, especially via text and messenger, they're like, she almost made it to 100. I said, you kidding me? Betty White soul do. I'm going to go out on a bang. She went out on New Year's Eve. Like, why not? Right?
Yeah. Wow. And it's so interesting. Those questions that you asked are key. And we don't take the time out to actually ask ourselves those questions, yet alone answer them. We might ask them and go, well, what does my optimal health look like? Or what am I scared of? Or what are my beliefs that need to be overwritten or put in the bin and rewritten? We don't really ask those questions because it's like, oh, that's too much. I better go back to work. I better work on that project. I better go call that client. But then we can ask ourselves, how better would our business and our relationship be with our clients if we actually answer those questions? Because then we would understand ourselves better, meaning that we would understand them better and their needs and be able to serve on a better, on a much larger scale and more quality we'll be able to provide.
So true. Because people don't know what they don't know. They know what they know. They know what they're used to. We're often in autopilot. I love to talk about the science behind the frontal lobe. When you study the primary brain is equivalent to animals. And like the front, flight and fight, we can just see that with animals all the time, right? Just our pets. And the frontal lobe is 40% of our brain. It's what I believe is the part of our brain that's been given to us as human beings that is really symbolic to free will. And so scientists say that the frontal lobe has the capacity, if we were to translate that into megabytes, it has the capacity of 2 trillion megabytes. And most human beings are only using 2,000. And so the frontal lobe is the slower part of our brain. It's our ability to tap into a deeper sense of awareness. It's when you see these people that are manifesting, they have to be manifesting from the frontal lobe. I see all this content around health that drives me insane because everybody is confused. And a confused mind says no. And the third part of our process is for people to notice their habits, how to shift those poor habits to ideal habits, and then to identify the triggers. And this is what happens when you make a decision, you're ready for change. That's when the work happens. And you will start to sometimes feel powerless because you will start noticing you want one thing and you're acting in a different state of being. And you find yourself going through drive-throughs or going on benches or drinking something that you don't want to drink, and then you're feeling powerless. So let's talk about that. We're either operating from a state of power or we're operating from a state of powerless. There's nothing they're not simultaneous. You're either or. You can go jumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But in that place, this is where we have to learn to be gentle with ourselves. Because the body is, what is a habit? It's when the body becomes the mind. So when the body becomes the mind, what happens, there's all of these chemicals that are happening within our physiology, like hormones, like serotonin and dopamine. The reason I'm laughing is I remember when I just decided after I healed, I just was going to continue not to drink. And here I know I'm doing great. And I would go out with friends. We talked about that earlier. I love music. I love my tribe. I love hanging out. And I would tell myself I wasn't going to drink. And then I would order a drink. And then I would order a second one and sometimes third one. And then I started thinking, do I have an alcohol problem? Damn, like this is crazy. But it wasn't. When I started to process it and then write affirmations around it, I'll go back to that. What happened is that it was the only time I slowed down to go hang out with friends besides meditate. And really, that was my past. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I have this ritual. I took my time getting ready. I'd play my favorite music. I pour myself a glass of wine, go out and hang with friends. And after like the fourth time, I knew I had to train my brain. So I wrote this affirmation where we're really about training the brain. We're mindset coaches. That's why my entrepreneur brands rock. That's why Body Temple is working so well. It's beyond the content. It's mindset. So I remember just every day meditating and reading. I hang out with friends in environments that don't promote alcohol. And it took me about 7 or 8 months. I'd be hanging out with them during the day. I would never drink. I never drank in nature. And so I finally was able to change that. But I realized down the line that that was the work that I needed to do in order to help people with their triggers, because it was the difficult part, even after we had designed this customized wellness plan that was all about, so much water source, meditation, fun and recreation, food planning, even specialty items, when they would train their mind to say, I can have 2 glasses of wine 3 days or 3 times a month. And that was their game. It's a really awesome process that we take people through. That's when I started to see the success with so much transformation over the top. I love to see people win. That is my passion.
Yeah, I can sense your passion. I can feel it 100%. I love it. So from what I'm understanding is that with your autoimmune disease, it was your mindset that assisted with shifting your disease from being a disease to optimal health. Am I hearing that right? Was it your mindset? Was that the key thing that assisted?
Yeah, beautiful. It was when I figured out what I was doing. I remember at one point, I had 3 healers and I wasn't quite better. And I had about 9 months. I was getting better, but I wasn't quite there. And I felt like there was somebody else that was going to come into my life. And this is a good example of just holding that place in your mind, in your heart. Like I call it affirmative prayer. And whether it's prayer or it's affirmations to the universe, I remember just saying, all right, God, I'm close. Guide me. Or excuse me, thank you for guiding me to that next person that's going to heal me in my journey. And I had this event in Vegas with, hundreds of leaders flying in from all over the world. It was at the Vidar 5-star hotel resort, and I was like, oh God, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? Because I wasn't quite well. And then this naturopath came into play. He's like this mad scientist. This guy is just unbelievable. But I remember looking at him at one point and saying, I don't know that I can do all of this. And he said, do you want to live? I said, what do you mean do I want to live? Of course I want to live. And he said, well, you're sick. And he said, we need to train your brain how to think. And at that point in my life, I knew I had done it with my entrepreneur brand. But I wasn't giving myself the time to really heal. And when I made that decision, I was going to make well-being my top priority. Everything changed. It was like I didn't have to look for clients. Everything it was like all the ideal people showed up, all the ideal situations. And I want all of you to hear that. Like when you make well-being, and there's unlimited resources in this universe, that whether it's abundance, but abundance is so much more than just materiality. Abundance is freedom from fear. Abundance is knowing your source. Abundance is being in such an elevated state of faith. What is manifestation? It's where belief and desire match. And sometimes what I've realized with people is they just need to see the strategy. That's the pragmatic part of me. When I saw the strategy, like I never sweat. I was lean, with like naturally lean. And so I didn't necessarily want to lose weight. That was in my mind. And I just would never get on a card machine until I did like, a bodybuilding show. But I'm in a sauna 6 days a week. I'm at Bikram yoga 2 days a week. Even those of you that have really ideal health, there's toxins in your water. There's toxins in your sewers. There's toxins in the air. There's toxins everywhere. Our fish source sucks. Like these, until you find like an ideal fish source, most fish have about salmon, halibut, 70 to 120 toxins. We've even got an ebook on chemicals and toxins to avoid. We've got our body temple shopping guide, our Kickstart detox. You get access to all this. And it's bodytemplekickstart.com. It's in the show notes, bodytemplekickstart.com. I knew that before I got on these podcast interviews, I wanted to be able to send people with a pay it forward complimentary program that they could do on their own time. And those of you that take that 43 minutes to watch that, even on 3 or 4 settings, it's a game changer. And you are going to be introduced to Lynn and magic. She's magic.
Yeah. I mean, if it's only got 1% of what the information you've given us today and the energy and the passion, then it's definitely worth it. So that's absolutely amazing. And I can sense your passion about Body Temple, and I can sense your passion about bringing your journey, going through what you've been through, and then coming to this now where you've got Body Temple going on. But before we go into a little bit more detail about that business, is I want to know, for a bodybuilder, you mentioned you were looking for external validation and then it went internal, and that's why you went into bodybuilding, and you said it was the wrong way around. What would you tell someone who's currently smashing it at the gym, wanting to be a bodybuilder, or is a bodybuilder, or just wanting to look good externally so they feel good internally? What would you tell them?
First of all, damn good question. That is the question of the hour. And what I mean by that is that sometimes we want validation, and validation comes from the ego. Like when you think of happiness can be your illusion of circumstances and people and incidents that make you happy. But the true definition of happiness is contentment. When we are content just because we choose to be, we're grateful because we choose to be. And so when I think about that pathway, I remember getting ready for this show, and this trainer, that I had 2 days before, he's like, your body looks amazing. And that wasn't really why I was doing it, but I was looking in the mirror and I was depleted at that point. And I remember thinking, why am I really doing this? And I remember having this thought of my dad that died at 55. And he put so much pressure on me as a kid he would joke with me and I just laugh it off. He's like, you're the odd kid. Or he'd say, did I get the wrong kid? And my kids are athletes. He was a lot of male energy, right? And I was looking in the mirror thinking, why am I even doing this? Why did I do this? And then the thought that came to mind for me was, you did it to be in your ideal state of mind, spirituality, and physicality. And it was like, whoa, I did it. And so it wasn't the compliment that I needed from my trainer. He's like, you're going to win the show. And so I would say, be careful about your ego, because what we exude internally to people, I mean, people don't care what we know or what we think. They care about how we make them feel. I remember I always dressed really nice when I would do these keynote messages, and then that changed, and I just wanted to be casual. And these are just people that I hired that told me how I needed to dress, right? And I hated suits, I hated ties. And I remember getting on this flight one day and I'm realizing, I'd stayed up all night and get on this flight to go to New York. And I'm thinking, oh no, you forgot your suit or your slacks for day 2 and your both your slacks for day 3. But I had my suit jacket and I had my slacks, and then I could go shopping. And then I thought of another thought. And then the third thought was, people don't give a shit. They only care how you make them feel. They're not even going to remember what you wear, Steve. Like, that's why you do what you do. And then that was the day that I made a decision after that convention. I'm never wearing a suit again. I hate how I feel. I'm uncomfortable. And so be careful about your reasons externally. And I have completely shifted that. Like, people do come up to me, especially youth at the gym, and they're like, how old are you? Like, your workouts are amazing, or you're like, your body's tight, but it's not for that reason. It's to feel good. It's, sometimes even in a 12-hour day, I'll get in, I could fall asleep in 2 minutes. I've trained my body how to do that. And I set my alarm for 15, 18, 20 minutes, especially if I have a lot of clients. And I always wake up before my phone goes off. And sometimes I have to work at night, and that's when I'll go get in the sauna for 30 minutes. And then the steam room, I have my own sauna, but I even just go in the gym. I'll get in the sauna, get in the steam room. I'll walk in the water. I'll come home, meditate. And it's like, I got another 3 hours left. Like, detoxing is a big part. Like, if you were to ask me, any of you, met you at the airport, we're talking, you find out what I do, you're getting ready to board, and you're like, I really want to improve my health. What advice would you give me? I'm pretty simple. I would say detox, sweat, like constantly sweat. Like, you sweat externally and you sweat internally. Saunas externally, cardio is internally. Bikram yoga or hot yoga is both. Second, go green. Just go green. When you learn that people say I'm a good cook, well, when you're doing what I'm doing, you're great at prepping food. There's not a lot you cook. It's just produce. Like, you just wouldn't believe what you can do with produce. You just would not believe it. I grow my own sprouts. It's so easy. It doesn't take any time. I intermittent fasting, and that means I have a green smoothie. That's just fantastic. I have my last meal at 7, my next meal as 1 o'clock the next day, but I'm still having breakfast. It's just not the all-American diet, man. And then eliminate the sugar. There's 68 barcoded ingredients disguised as sweeteners that are so friggin' toxic for you. And when you realize, like, essential oil, it can actually is a sweetener. There are so many great sweeteners. You can make a chocolate mousse that tastes just like chocolate mousse out of avocados and lemon essential oil. You just wouldn't believe it. It's incredible. And so it's just lack of knowledge. We have, at the end of this detox manual, all these vegan recipes that are phenomenal, that are simple, easy to eat to prepare. But it's often that we just don't know what we don't know. So that's our game. We've got a lot of coaches at Lifeline that we have a community online. In fact, you can jump into Facebook and search Body Temple Community, because we started off completely a philanthropic movement. That was our intent. And then it's grown into coaching programs and life programs and courses and all sorts of things. But our true essence is to help people restore their health, heal, or to take their health to the next level.
Love that. And if the audience was actually listening to what you were saying, you were giving so many practical tips on how to be healthy and exactly what you kind of done to go from bodybuilding to autoimmune disease to health. You know, the sprouts, the sleep, the diet. You're talking about the fasting. There's so many things that you've mentioned in there, the toxins, the water, the sugar, all those things that you mentioned in there. So if anyone wants to just rewind and re-listen to that, you've just provided some absolutely amazing practical tips for us to be healthy. But now let's go into the body temple, right? You're so passionate about it. And like you said, it's something that you've created to assist others because you've healed yourself. And now you're like, wow, like so many more people need this information. So you're out there sharing it. And you've even provided a little freebie for us to share with our audience, which I absolutely love. And they'll be provided in the show notes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I still want to reinforce you're such a great interview. I feel like I'm in a coaching session. I don't know that I've ever had the degree of emotion. And I wanted to say symbolically to everybody, it's, you know, your spirit, your purity, your ability to listen, you're tuned in, you demonstrate and model for everyone that follows your podcast the energy that I want for others. And that's why I've always created with an end in mind, like, you know, being a entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and doing over 1,800 seminars. I would always think about, excuse me, where am I leading them? Like where I want them to have a template. And so, and I learned a lot from all my work with Tony Robbins. So I was in many of his programs. And so I train, coach, and coach the audience. And so sometimes we would just get off topic because I could tell they needed help in that particular area. So I would have these resources. I would have these libraries with every training that I would do within that 7-hour seminar. And I would say, don't worry about it. Like, I want you to know it's recorded, it's transcribed. And so when I got on my first few podcasts, I realized I didn't have that in place. And so I just decided to pause. And then after several months, we created this complimentary program called Kickstart Detox. Because when you learn to detox, it actually elevates your clarity. Like fasting is interesting. There's so many different, we'll say, case studies on rats that they taught or basically manipulated to fast, but they lived way longer, sometimes 3 times as long as other rats. And you're going to learn a lot about detoxing, but you're going to learn a lot about mindset and how to create an ideal wellness plan. And we are all about customizing. So those of you that jump into it, completely complimentary, you know, there's 3 kinds of you. One might be the person that knows they're sick and they're dealing with a severe condition. Notice my word. We're not going to call it a disease. We're capable of restoring our health. You need to go narrow. You'll hear Lynn talk about that. And we're going to show you the narrow plan. And then some of you, you're ready to go to the next level and you want a plan for your fitness and your mindset to take you to the next level. And we're going to show you that. And then some of you, it's like you mentioned this earlier, you want to step into it, but you want to acclimate it. You don't want it to be overwhelming. And so we have this basic, it's called this 15-day detox. So 2 pathways. The first pathway is the decisions you make, which we lead you to. And then the second pathway is the products you take. Now, I didn't know that 92% of the products on the market have chemicals in them. I didn't know that. In my mind, it was like, you know, after I got sick, I was like, Wiltshire, duh. Like, why didn't you ever research this? Why didn't anybody ever tell me? I thought all supplements were great. You know, I was on this $833 regimen after my show for 2 years. It destroyed my gut. So when I started to look for 100% chemical-free products, I couldn't find it. And so I was within this group of people that influential people that led me to this formulator. And Treadway, like, he actually could give me evidence of where it was grown, the soil, the long process to create this chemical-free product. And so I had him create a chemical-free. We don't have a lot of products. We just kept it really simple. Body Temple Purified Detox formula. That's amazing. And this product is not aggressive. I mean, I had been at airports before where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything on my back end. I had no idea that these products could be so aggressive. And this is like part of my early days of healing myself. And so it's like this maintenance program that I take every day. And I kind of laugh about it, that I can't believe how much I eliminate in the morning from this product, getting it all out of my system, because I really don't eat a ton of food. And then the restored digestive enzymes, you look at the ingredients on the back of that, you just wouldn't believe it. And it just restores your gut. When you start to have gut issues, it's the central problem. Like they say, 90% of all disease really happens below the waist. It's the gut and it's the colon. And this pro and prebiotic with 5 billion spores. I mean, I don't very rarely say this, but I just chose not to get vaccinated. It's not for everybody, meaning getting vaccinated is for some people. I really believe that it's a personal decision and it has to do with age. And some of you have these careers where you need to be vaccinated, regardless if you do or not. The best gift you can give your body is to boost your immune system. It is the best gift you have. So that's kind of part of this 15-day detox, the choices you make. And we offer it's called the Ultimate Purification Package at 25% off, 30-day money-back guarantee. And we start to help you understand that wherever you're getting your supplements, you will know in this guide that we give you on toxins and chemicals to avoid. We actually show you exactly what you're looking for in labels. It's phenomenal. It's super cool.
And that's exactly what's needed. Like you said, there's so many chemicals found in, and not just our supplements, our foods, in our water, all around us. You've mentioned this before. So it's so important to actually educate individuals. So I'm so glad that you've put something together. I want to jump on and do it myself to go through it. And I'm definitely going to promote it because I think it's absolutely needed. We need to educate individuals on how to read labels, what to look out for, but also what to look for in a product for you to take into your body. And then also, like you said, you're taking this product, but what are you taking it with? Are you taking it with a soft drink, with a coffee, with water? Is it filtered, purified water? So many things there. So I'm so happy and glad that, you have opened up and gone with Body Temple. I'm on the website now. It's so simple. I had a look through the ingredients in the supplement. I love how simple you've made it. Just 3 supplements: purify, fortify, and restore. So simple. I love it.
I don't even take hardly anything because it's all food. Your food can heal your body. And I didn't want to expand the line. I was like, no, I just want to focus on immune system and the gut, because I really don't take a lot of products. I did forget to say that I knew I wanted to do something special for this podcast, and I had a mastermind group with our coaches on Monday. And I said, would you be willing to offer we have several coaches, and I just said, would each of you be willing to do a take charge of your health, customized strategy session for the first 20 people that opt in? So we're going to do that, and you're going to get a 100% complimentary strategy session, and with resources and all sorts of support. And just know that Kickstart Detox manual, it is filled with education that will take you probably a good month to implement. Like, I loved, Mihaela, when you talked about water source. Like, a lot of people, they can't afford to go get a Purify, like a water unit. But when you go to some of these health stores, like, first of all, I want to say, there is so much evidence of water in this plastic that comes from China, sitting in warehouses for up to a year. It is full of toxins. Now, granted, glass is your best ideal, but even those thick, lucite, huge tanks of, water, you can go to these great high-end stores that are mainly about health, and they've got these purify water units. You fill it up for the week, you're good to go. What do you want to do? You want to drink half your weight in ounces, and you want a really good water source. It's a very important part of restoring your health.
Thank you so much for providing that special to the audience. It's absolutely amazing, and I bet you those people will be jumping on it because it's an absolutely amazing special. So I really, really do appreciate it. Steve, before we finish off, I ask all my guests, as this is the Natural Health Podcast, what is your best kept natural health hack? And I mean, you'll have so many, and you've mentioned some. I kind of have a thought of what it may be, but you let me know what your health hack is, Steve.
You know what? You're on it. I noticed earlier I didn't finish my thought about the guy in the airport, right? I said, go green. I said, sweat. And I didn't say diminished sugar. I guess I did say it because I talked about all the sugar disguised. You know what I don't like is BS. I am attracted to, I don't give this acknowledgement very often, but you're a purist. Mahila, that's what I love about you. You're a purist. And I can tell that now, like why I was gravitated to the description. Then I went to your YouTube channel and I watched a couple of videos, and then I listened to an episode, but I'm feeling that in this, like, we need more leaders like you and I in the world that are really all about humanity and not about power and gain. But my best secret for restoration for me personally is detoxing. And that means, better said, sweating. That's what I really meant to say, is sweating. I can't tell you, if you were to look at me 10 years ago, I'm 57 years old, and my skin is so immaculate. You know what I noticed is that, I used to even get Botox, and I don't anymore. I can't believe how my skin's changed and what it's done to alkaline my system and elevate my physiology. And the stress that people are dealing with, we're in a time and space, even when I see going on, in Australia, my God, like we can't control circumstances. We can control personal power. And personal power is recognizing that we have choice in everything. But since 2020, March of 2020, this elevated state of uncertainty has happened in the world. Stress, anxiety, depression, record high. Antidepressants, record high. Suicide, record high. The best gift you give everyone is modeling. It is not trying to talk them into something. It's not manipulating them. It's not, I got to empower them. It's not, I got to enable them. The greatest version of yourself is a gift because people are going to want it. And when they see the transformation happen in you, and most of you that are empaths, even healthy empaths, or really want to make a difference, you at first glance may feel a little selfish, taking care of yourself. But hearing this, modeling, is the greatest gift you give everyone. And so when you make that your number one choice in life, you're going to notice everybody around you starts to change because they want what you have.
That's such a good point. I absolutely love it. Modeling, and I mean, you're doing that right now with the company that you're running, the coaching that you're doing. You're modeling everything that you've learned from being a bodybuilder, having an autoimmune disease, and now having health, being in the flow, having the right people around you, detoxing, getting a sauna, sweating, working on yourself, hiring coaches. There's so many things that you have done yourself, which is what you're modeling right now to others, and coaching that through them. So I love what you shared with us on the Natural Health Podcast. I love that you've given hope to individuals who may be sick or may have some health issues or may not just be in the right headspace. You've provided them with some hope through this podcast and said, hey, you know what? You can fix this. It's pretty simple and it's pretty easy. So I really do appreciate it because, hope is a huge thing. Many people don't have that at the moment, especially with what's happening around the world, and they may not be surrounded with the right people. But you providing them with hope to heal, hope to connect, and hope to be in flow. I think that's a great one. So I really do appreciate you being on the Natural Health Podcast and providing such valuable information, Steve.
Thank you so much. In closing, let your hope make you glad. And my number one affirmation I give all clients, and I say, I want you to read this every day and every night. It's this: stay in process and enjoy the journey. When I go south on my commitments, I bless, release, and recommit. It takes time to transform. Treat yourself like you would treat a loving child that just was learning over and over and over again. It just takes a little time.
I love that. Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you for joining us on the Natural Health Podcast. Remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health. Content and information provided here is opinion of Mahela Raguse and is for information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. It is not intended to provide medical advice or take the place of medical advice or any current treatment you're undertaking. Consult your own medical professionals for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast. It is advised that you consult your doctor or healthcare professional in relation to any health concerns you may be having. Mahela Raguse does not take responsibility for any health consequences which occur from a person listening, viewing, or reading this content. And in no circumstances shall the Natural Podcast, Mahela Raguse, any guests or contributors to the Natural Podcast, or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Mahela Raguse be responsible for damages arising from the information provided on the Natural Podcast. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical conditions in either yourself or others. Please note, if you're taking prescription, do not stop your medication or start a new protocol, including but not limited to supplements, diet, lifestyle changes without consulting your doctor or healthcare professional. If you or any person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical advice. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have read or heard on the Natural Podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. Neither Mahela Raguse nor the publisher of this content takes responsibility for the possible health consequences of any person or persons reading or listening or following the information in educational content.